Hey, Nathan here from PH Studios, and welcome back to another Tower Defense Engine tutorial. In last tutorial, we discussed the wave information part 2, where we filled in the method bodies. Now, the last three classes, the map region, CommandInfoBar is what we're going to talk about today, and the map class, those three classes are going to be very large classes. And I mentioned in a earlier video the tutorials we have left to do, and I mentioned that these might go to like part 4 or even part 5, so they might end up being like 2 hour long for one class. So I made a decision on these three classes. The code is complete. Right there, that's all the code, it's complete. I copied over the code from the finished game into this version, the one that I'm talking about, the tutorial version, and instead of making a 2 hour video split into like 4 or 5 parts for each of these classes, I'm going to just discuss the finished code. And I'm sure you want the series to be done. It's getting up to like tutorial 30, and we just have these 3 classes left. And I'm sure you don't want me to have a 2 hour video where I discuss everything by what I'm doing and the complex behind every method and everything like that. And then, of course, me typing and trying to type and talk at the same time and all that stuff. So, the code is complete. I'm going to, if you watched any of my previous tutorials where we just covered the basic XNA random tutorials like the XNA maps or A star, where the code is complete, and then I can focus on the algorithm and discuss what's going on more instead of having me type. So, for up until now, I think I did this once or twice, but I pretty much coded everything in the video. But these 3 classes are going to be so big, I think it would be best to have the code complete, and I'll just discuss what's going on. And then, of course, you can download the class in the description, so you don't have to type all this either. I'll just let you know what's going on. Okay, so the first thing is the constructor, and then this is the method body, and then we get a local copy of the session object, and then we set up our event handlers. And then we set up the tower purchase. Whenever a tower is purchased, the CommandInfoBar needs to be notified, so it signs up to that purchase tower event handler, and it sets that up in the session. And then the money increase. Whenever we increase our money, it's going to sign us up for that event handler. And then the background, whatever you made in Photoshop, or if you're using my stuff, that's what the background is for. Now the rectangle, this will be passed in from the game. That tells us how big and where the CommandInfoBar will be. That way you can customize the look of your game different to mine. If you want the CommandInfoBar on the left side of the screen instead of the right side, all you have to do is modify the rectangle and you pass it in once, and that's what holds the CommandInfoBar's location. And then the padding, if we use the padding, in some cases we will not use the padding, but if it is being used, that will push the text left 10 pixels, and it will make sure that the text is pushed down 10 pixels. And then we get the wave index from the map, and we get the map from the session. Okay, now the CommandInfoBar is a set of UI blocks. We have a money and towers where it says available money, Y, towers placed, X. So that's what the money and towers UI block handles. So it's going to be very small. It's going to be 50 pixels high. And we're using the rectangles top and left, so we're using the X and Y of the rectangle, and then the width, -5. We don't want it to reach the width of the far right side of the screen. We want to leave like a 5 pixel gap between where it ends and the end of the screen. Purchase tower, that's right below the money and towers. That's going to be money and towers.dimensions.bottom. And then the money and towers, that's UI block we just placed. So whenever we assign a new UI block, it automatically calculates the dimensions from what we give it, and then we can get the bottom, and then plus 10, so we get some sort of gap between two UI blocks. Now, purchase tower and selected tower will occupy the same space. As you see, the rectangle is the exact same, but I made them two separate objects, so they're referencing different objects. In any case, if you want to switch any of this out, that's why I did that. So they occupy the same space. When you select a tower, the selected tower will be visible. When you want to purchase a tower, the purchase tower will be visible. So they will not be visible at the same time, but they will occupy the same space. The stats and control UI block will be at the very bottom. That's what we use to launch the next wave and pause, increase speed and decrease speed. So that's the stats and control block. And that's going to be a little bit smaller than the purchase tower and selected tower. Now this whole thing is built for 720p resolution. In a later patch, I will set it up to have dynamic resolution. Probably 720p will be the lowest you can choose. It'll probably be choose between 720p and 1080p. And then that way, these will be dynamic values instead of static. Okay, and then now we're set up to be notified whenever our health is decreased. Because we want to change our text. We want to change our UI blocks whenever some of these conditions are met. Alright, so when our money is increased, we need to get local copies of the selected towers button. And then we get the buy tower and upgrade tower. We get that so we can change our texture and color of the button and enable it if our money increased past the cost of that tower. So if we have a tower selected and we want to buy the tower or upgrade the tower, if we get one of those and let's say we have 0 money, those will be in an error state and disabled. As our money increases, this session, this method is signed up for that notification. So whenever we increase our money, this code is going to run every single time. And when we have more money than the cost or the upgrade cost, then we will enable the button. So that's what this code is doing right here. Now for the upgrade, we also need to check if we can upgrade, if the level +1, so our desired level for our upgrade, is less than the maximum level, then we enable the button. So not only do we have to check the upgrade cost, but we need to check the level to make sure we are within the upgrade limit. Alright, health decreased. This is what we are notified every time we lose health. We need to set the text to our health. So we need to update our health every time the monsters get to our base and we lose our lives. We just need to modify that text value in the get text. Okay, whenever we purchase a tower, it's going to sign us up for the clickable tower left click event. A tower is placed, we can click a tower on the map, and that's what this method handles. We left click a clickable tower in the map, and then it displays our upgrade button and all that stuff. So we sign up for that event every time we purchase a tower. So we can have 100 towers, and it will all be signed up to this event. And we get that from the purchase tower event handler, or event args, that passes us the tower that was purchased. Alright, now we get the button for the buy tower, and if the clicked tower the cost of that is greater than our money currently. We bought the tower. Now we need to look at our money again. So if our money is still greater, or if the money of the tower is greater than our money that we have in stock, we need to set our texture to error state, and we need to deactivate the button. Okay, so to initialize the command info bar, we need to set up the sprite font, which we pass it in, and then we need to initialize all of our UI blocks. So money and towers, purchase tower, and stats and controls. Now, the reason we do not set up we have a third UI block, select a tower. We do not initialize that because we do not know which one we are going to select ahead of time. So that's going to be initialized on demand whenever we select a tower. Okay, so when we click the clickable tower, whenever that is clicked, remember, as I said, every tower in the map will need to be signed up for a left click event. That is what initializes the selected tower UI block. Remember, it's generated on demand instead of just once like these three. So the fourth UI block will be generated on demand whenever this event is fired, and you fire that event whenever you click a tower in the map. Okay, now we have the initialize methods, just a couple of them, for the money and towers and purchase towers. And these will be generated just once. You will generate the UI block just once. These are static blocks. So we just set up our money and towers to have two text values. It tells us our available money and our towers placed. So we name the element that we're trying to add money. We name it, and then we set it up as a type. So money refers to a text object. And that text object will take the string, which is the session.money display, and then the location. And then the same with towers. Now for the towers, it's going to be placed below money. So I take the rectangle.top, which is the same as this, plus padding. Remember, that's the exact same thing as the one up there. I also add the sprite font.line spacing, so it positions it appropriately below our money value. Okay, initialize purchase tower. This is going to set up all of our thumbnails. So we set up a position which takes the purchase tower's dimensions left plus padding. We want to give a little bit of gap between the far left side of the UI block, so that's what the padding's for. And then the top plus padding plus the line spacing times, because we have a text element above our tower textures, our tower icons that we want to click. We have a text element above those, and we want to provide a much larger gap between the text element and our icons. So we just multiply it by 2 to achieve that nice gap. So for every tower in our tower list for our map, we want to add a button, and that button is going to have a texture that refers to the tower's thumbnail. The position is going to be our position that we have right now, right there. And we're going to add the thumbnail.width divided by 2, and then the thumbnail.height divided by 2. We want to add those to achieve a nice centered position. We're going to assign that button up to a left click event. Purchase tower.add t.name. So we're going to add the element to the UI block, give it the name of the tower, and then the button value, our button object. Now once we added that icon, we need to add a new one next. So we increment the position.x plus equals the thumbnail.width plus padding. So as you see in the snow map, we have 3 towers that we can buy. They are positioned horizontally. That's what this is taking care of. We increment our position.x by our current thumbnail plus the padding, so we get a nice gap between the 2 icons. Now, if that position is plus the width of the texture, if that is greater than the purchase tower.dimensions.right, that means our icon has passed the right side of our dimensions. We need to reset the X position to what it was before. So this. And then we need to increment the Y position. So whenever we have, like, let's say you have 20 towers, we want it to be positioned by having like 3 at the top, then the next 3. So it's going to be rows if it reaches the far right side of the dimensions. Okay, whenever we have a selected tower, left click whenever this event is fired, we're going to initialize this selected tower UI block. Now, the UI block, the button is passed to this event args by the object sender. So we say button B is sender as button, and if B is not equal to null, the button stores the tower. So the button stores any object you want it to. So button.storedObject as tower. Now if tower is not equal to null, we want to set that up as a clicked tower, and then we initialize the selected tower UI block. Now a UI block contains a clear all, which deletes all the elements that we have added to that block currently, because we might have selected a different tower. So we might as well clear all and then redo it, because we don't know if we selected a different tower or not. Now, an image is a type of feature that you can add to the UI block, and that is the click tower texture. That's what we're using for the image. Now we add the tower name, which is text, the tower description, which is text, the stats, specials, price, those are all text. Now if the tower is placed, we need to add an upgrade button and a sell button. If the tower is not placed, we just need to add the purchase button. Now there is one button that we will add to the very bottom of the UI block, and that's either to cancel the selection or deselect the tower. How do we know which one to add? Well, we use the is placed as well. So if the tower is placed, we set that button to have a text of deselect tower. Otherwise, it says cancel. Alright, so we measure the string s, and we have that in a vector2 sdim. Now we need to create a vector2 for the cancel button position, and that will be at the very bottom of the UI block. So dimensions.bottom minus the normal texture.height divided by 2 minus padding. So that's the very bottom of the UI block minus the texture height divided by 2. Now we need a vector2 for the text, our cancel text position. And we're just going to center that vertically and just pad it. Now we generate a new button, CB, and we're going to pass in all these values, this position, and then the new text. We're going to add a new text to it right out of the gate. And then that's going to be signed up to a left-click event for cancel button. And then we're going to add that to the UI block. Alright, so everything else is pretty much the same thing. We're going to add a sell button. So we generate a new button and then the string. And then we get the total cost. Remember, on my game, it's 50%. You receive 50% of your total cost. The total amount of money you put in the tower. You can change that through the XML in your game. And that's referred to the sell scalar. So you can set it up to you receive 90% of your overall cost. And that is what it's generating the string. You receive the first argument, which we have a comma here, and that's the first argument. So we do the usual thing. We measure the string, we set up the button position, and then the text position. And then we set up as a new button, and then we generate the text right out of the gate. That's signed up for a left-click event as well. And then we add it to the UI block. Same thing with the upgrade button. We're going to check to see if we have the appropriate money and we are within the level range before we add the button. Add purchase button. We do the same thing as the upgrade button. We make sure that we have the right amount of money and the level is less than the max level. Just so there's no hacks here. I know a click tower should be at level 1, but just to make sure there's no hacks going on, this checks to make sure it's within the level range. Okay, so those are pretty much the same, those 3 buttons. Add sell button, upgrade button, and purchase button. So whenever we sell the tower, we need to call the sell tower from the session, and we need to set it as null for the click tower. Okay, whenever we click the upgrade tower button, we need to call session.upgradeTower, and we pass it the tower to upgrade. Now we need to reset up all the text values. The upgrade tower cost is changed. The sell tower button, the text will be different. The stats will be different from the selected tower UI block. The price will be different, and the tower name will be different because we have basic tower 1, basic tower 2. The number refers to the level, so we need to change the tower name from the selected tower UI block. Now we just upgraded the tower, so we need to double check to make sure we still have enough money and it's still within the level range. If it's not, if all this stuff is true, which means our upgrade cost is greater than our money, so we don't have enough money to upgrade, or if the level is equal to the max level, we cannot upgrade again. So we set up the texture to be an error texture. Use the error color for the map, and deactivate the button. And remove it from the notification of left click. Alright, buy tower. Pretty much a similar thing. Session.selectTower T. So we call it select tower, and that will just store it in the selected tower T. The actual purchasing of the tower will be handled in a different UI region, the map region. Whenever that updates the next time, it will purchase the tower. So the cancel button, it'll reset the tower references, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes, and then it will reset the tower references in the map region as well. Okay, initialize stats and controls. That's pretty much the same thing. We're going to generate a few text elements for the wave and then the health. And then we use the dimensions and the padding to position it appropriately. Then we also have 3 buttons to launch next wave now, or to pause, increase speed, and decrease speed. 4 buttons, not 3. And all those buttons are signed up for events, so when we pause, we call session.pause. When we click pause again, or we press escape to exit the menu, we call session.resume. If we increase speed, now we need to check if the session.speed is less than the max speed, we need to increase the speed. Same thing with decrease speed. If the speed is greater than the min speed, we need to decrease the speed. Next wave. If the map is in a wave delay state, we need to start next wave now. Okay, to reset the tower references, we need to... The click tower is null. We have no towers clicked. And we need to deselect the tower from the session. Okay, so every time this updates, we need to change the money and towers, because that's probably going to be the thing that will change. Most of the time, it's going to be money. You kill a monster, you get money, so that's going to be beneficial for the money. Button launch next wave now. That's going to be determine the state. Every time it updates, it's going to check the map state by the session.map.state. So that's what takes care of the deactivating and activating that button. Now, whenever we update and the click tower is not null, we need to, for each B in selected tower.buttons. So we need to update our buttons based on the click tower. The reason we're doing that is because we need to update it with the mouse to determine if it's clicked or not, if the button is clicked. If the click tower is null, then we update it from the purchase tower buttons list, not the selected tower buttons list, but the purchase tower buttons list. And for stats and controls, we always want to monitor the mouse, so we always update that with the session.mouse. Increase speed and decrease speed, we need to make sure that the speed is appropriate within range. If it's not, we need to set up the error state and deactivate the buttons that way. If wave index is not equal to the wave of the map, we need to set it to the current wave index, and we need to change the stats and controls wave to list it the appropriate number. And then draw, we just call the UI blocks draw method. And that's it for this class. So even though the code was complete, I still think it was about a 30-minute video. So lots of stuff going on here. It's mostly event-driven logic and positioning of elements. The UI block takes care of most of it, but we also need to worry about positioning our text and stuff before we have the UI block take care of it. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Next tutorial, we're probably going to cover the map region class, and then we're going to cover the map class. So I hope to see you next time. This class will be available to download in the video description, rather on YouTube, if it's on YouTube or on my site. Anywhere that you are watching the video, look around the video and you will see the link to download this class.